What's up everybody, and thank you for joining me for another video. My name is Whack4863, but you can call me Whack. In today's video, I'm going to take you through light armors that you can get in the Exiled Lands. Now this is only in the Exiled Lands. This doesn't have anything to do with the Isle of Siptah, although you may be able to get these armors in the Isle of Siptah as well. Now, I will be doing a guide on armors that you can only get in the Isle of Siptah, and that'll be in a later video. Again, I'm only going through the light armors, and all of these armors that I'm going to show you today have the highest armor rating and the highest bonuses to your attributes that you can get. And the reason for that is because I crafted them with the armorer that has the shield on its icon. So that's the Shield Right Armorer, and that's going to give you the highest armor rating. I also want to make sure that I'm clear on this. When I'm crafting these armors, I'm only talking about the Exile epics here. So if that armor can be crafted as a non-epic version, it is not going to be as good as the armor that I'm showing you today. The armor that I'm showing you today is the creme de la creme. It is the best way you are going to craft that specific armor in the Exiled Lands. We're going to start off here with the Aquilonian Scout. This gives you 216 total armor, and the attributes that you get are plus 10 to agility. If we come over to our stats, you can see it gives us a 46% reduction in damage, and it has a heat resistance and a cold resistance of 4. Moving on to the Argosian Mariner, this is going to give you 176 total armor points. And if we look at the attributes, it's going to give us an additional 10 points in strength. Moving over to the stats, we get a 41% reduction in damage and 4 points in resistance to both heat and cold. Moving on to the assassin, this gives us 176 total armor points. And if we look at the attributes, it's going to give us 4 bonus points to strength and 6 bonus points to accuracy. If we look at the stats, you can see it gives us a 41% reduction to the damage we take, and it has heat resistance of 6 and a cold resistance of 4. Moving on to the Dafari skin, or the Dafari Watcher. This is a little bit odd because the armor is called the Dafari skin, but the helmet is actually called the Dafari Watcher. But this is the light version of the Dafari armor. This is going to give you 176 total armor, and if we look at the attributes, it gives us an additional 10 points to strength. Moving over to the stats, you can see it gives us a 41% damage reduction, and it has a heat resistance of 6 and a cold resistance of 4. Moving on to the Katan Mercenary, this gives us 176 in armor, and its bonuses is grit, a total of 10 bonus points to that. If we move over to the stats, it's going to give us 41% damage reduction, and it is heat and cold resistance of 4 points. Moving on to the Lemarian Royal Gown, you can see that gives us 169.4 total armor. And if we move over to the attributes, this is going to give us a total of 10 bonus points to survival. On to the stats, this gives us 40% damage reduction and a heat resistance and cold resistance of 4. If we come over to the light armor here, you can see it gives us 176 total armor points. Our attribute bonus is going to be 10 to encumbrance. And if we move over to stats, you can see it gives us a 41% damage reduction, and it gives us a heat and cold resistance of 6. The Poitain Footman is going to give us 216 total armor points, and if we look at the attributes, it gives us an additional 10 points in agility. Moving over to our stats page, you can see it gives us a 46% damage reduction and a heat and cold resistance of 4. Moving on to the Pictish Wizard, this is going to give us 176 total armor points. Our attributes are going to be buffed at 10 to accuracy, and if we look at the stats, you can see it gives us a 41% damage reduction and a total resistance to heat and cold of 4. The Relic Hunter is going to give us 176 points of armor, and if we look at our attributes, it will give us 4 points in encumbrance and 6 points in survival. Moving on to the stats, you can see it gives us 41% damage reduction, and it's going to be a total of 6 in heat resistance and a total of 5 in cold resistance. The Shemite armor is going to give us 176 armor points, and if we look at our attributes, you can see it gives us a total of 10 bonus points to accuracy. Moving on to the stats, you can see 41% damage reduction, a total of 6 in heat protection, and a total of 4 in cold protection. The Slave Forge Ceremonial is going to give us 176 in armor. Its bonus is going to be 10 points to vitality, and if we look at the stats, you get a 41% damage reduction, a heat and cold resistance of 4. Moving over to the Turanian Scout, you can see we get 176 in total armor. Our attributes are buffed in survival, a total of 10. And if we move over to our stats, we get a 41% damage reduction, and we get a total of 8 heat resistance and 5 cold resistance. So this is going to be a really good armor for hot areas. It is actually the highest heat resistance in the light category. Moving on to the Veneer Armor, this one's going to give you 156.2 total armor. And if we look at the attributes, it is going to give us an additional 10 points in grit. Moving on to the stats, you can see it gives us a 38% damage reduction. It's a heat resistance of 4 and a cold resistance of 6. Now between this armor and the regular light armor, both of those armors have the highest rating in this category for cold protection, with the most that you can get being 6. The Yamatai Foot Soldier is going to be a total of 216 armor, and if we look at the attributes, it's going to give us an additional 10 points in agility. Moving on to the stats, it is a 46% damage reduction. It does a total of 7 resistance to heat and 4 resistance to cold. The Lemarian Thief is going to give you a total of 216 armor, and the attributes are going to be a total of 10 bonus points to agility. If we move on to the stats, you can see we get a 46% damage reduction, and if we look at the heat and cold resistance, we get 6 total resistance to heat and 4 total resistance to cold. Now many of you may remember that the Thief was actually good for cold weather resistance. That is not what it's good for anymore. It is good for heat resistance, not cold resistance, so that's a big change to the armor. The Zingaran Freebooter is going to give you 178.2 total armor. Its attribute bonus is going to be a total of 10 points in vitality, and if we move over to the stats, you can see it gives us a 41% damage reduction, and it gives us 6 total resistance to heat and 4 total resistance to cold. The next one on our list to look at is the Kari Overseer. Now this guy has 176 total armor, but what you're going to see next is it actually has a ton of bonuses to attributes. It has a +6 in strength and +10 in grit. If we move over to the stats, we get a damage reduction of 41% and a resistance to heat and cold of 3 total points. The Kari Raider is much like the Overseer. It gives you 167 total armor, and if we look at our attributes, it's going to give us a +6 to encumbrance and a +10 to survival. I'm going to come back to that in just a moment. Let's look at the stats real quick. It gives us a 41% reduction to damage, and it is 4 resistance in both hot and cold. Let's go back to the attributes real quick. The only armors in this category, in the light category, that have this many bonus attribute points happen to be both Kari armors. So if you're wearing the Overseer or you're wearing the Raider, you are going to get 16 additional points. Now I have no idea whether this is intended or whether this is accidental, but it was something that I noticed that was different from all the other armors that I'm showing you today. Now this is the Void Forge Dragon Hide Armor. This is a light armor, and I recently did a video on where you can learn this armor in the Exiled Lands. I'll link that in the top right hand corner of this video. Now I want you to notice something that is wildly or drastically different from everything else that I've shown you up until this point. The armor value. This armor value at 352 is almost double the armor value of a lot of these armors that I've shown you. So this armor just has a lot more armor than the other armors I've showed you at 352 total armor. Moving on to the attributes that it gives you, this will give you 3 in strength, 7 in vitality, and 3 in grit. If we move over to the stats, you can see it gives us a 58% damage reduction. Where it lacks is in the heat and cold resistance, only having 3 points in both heat and cold resistance. And last but certainly not least is the Silent Legion light armor. And this is going to give you the most armor out of all of the light categories at 364. Again, if you don't know where to learn this armor, use the link that I put in the description of this video and I'll show you where to get it. If we move over to the attributes, you can see it gives us 3 in strength, 3 in agility, 3 in vitality, 3 in grit, and 3 in encumbrance. If we move over to the stats, you can see it gives us a total damage reduction of 59%. The heat resistance is going to be 4 points and the cold resistance is going to be a total of 3 points. So I want to talk to you real quick about the Void Forge Dragonhide and the Light Silent Legion. The fact that both of these have much higher armor ratings than all the other armors. And I think we're on the right path here with Funcom. I don't think we need to reduce the armor value of these two armors, even though they have much higher armors than all the other armors. I think what needs to happen is they need to look at all the other armors that have been in game for a long time and make adjustments to close the gap or bring them up to this level of armor. And I'll give you an example of some armor that just seems like it should have more armor in general, and that's the Veneer Settler. This is late game kind of armor, and it only has 156.2 total armor. If you look at a DLC armor like the Yamatai, it has 216. Now some of this is going to actually come from agility because you do gain armor points when you put points in agility. It's just a natural defense that you have when you place points in agility. But we can even look at the Terranian, which is going to put the points in survival. And if we look at the total armor that we have here, it's 176, which is a lot more than the Veneer. So I just really feel like these armors need a pass through and have them looked at for whether they meet the standard of the game the way we're playing it today, and I think they need to be brought more in line with the armors like the Void Forge Dragonhide and the Silent Legion Light. So that's my little bit of ranting for the day. I just wanted to show you guys what these armors actually had, what you could do with them, so that you don't have to spawn them all in or craft them all like I have, and you can pick the armor that you think is best out of this video. Now you let me know in the comment section below, do you agree with me? Do you think that armors that have been in the game for a long time need to be looked at and possibly raise the armor value? Or do you think we're in a good spot and the armors that have just been released into the game, do those need to be reduced? The whack moments in this video were sponsored by my legendary supporters. Thank you very much. If you'd like to become a member, you can click the button below that says join. That'll give you all the details. I'd like to thank all my subscribers for their continued support, likes, comments, and general awesomeness. If you're not a subscriber, you can start your free trial today and cancel at any time. Clicking the bell is highly recommended so you get notified when I upload another video. Now, if you're not done watching, there's 2 videos on the screen. You could pick one of those to watch next. I hope you've enjoyed this video as much as I've enjoyed making it. I'll catch you next time. Peace.